welcome to the Other Side of 45 podcast. I'm your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational family trauma and curses, completing my 50/50s by 50 list, and my life as a single empty nester. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Please subscribe and rate this podcast 5 stars. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk about politics and friendship. So, growing up in the cult, I was taught that if someone was not a believer, that they were not to be considered our friends. We were to have limited contact with non-believers. So it was so indoctrinated that non-believers are not to be considered our friends, that even if you were to call a classmate or coworker friend, there will be people who will correct you and say, "Oh, you don't treat me an associate or acquaintance." It was strongly discouraged, and you'll hear those in the cult now say, "Oh no, that's not true because we have to go to work." It's true, and because of that, I've always struggled with making friends as an adult, because growing up in the cult, our friends were given to us. These are the people that were decent, therefore these are people you can be friends with. And I really didn't develop good skills of making friends. And I passed that, unfortunately, along to both of my girls. Now, the girls do have friends, but they do struggle. They struggle with maintaining good relationships. And they're working on it. We all are. I've gotten a lot better. But recently, at one of my jobs, this has come up. Because, as you also know, if you're a regular listener, if not, you'll know for the first time, that prior to the 2016 election, I did not vote. Again, something that was we didn't do. I was going to say frowned upon. We just didn't do it. So prior to the 2016 election, I had never voted. I didn't vote in the 2016 election. But after that, I did, because we were taught that neither party was more moral than the other. We were taught they were both bad, and that they were both bad in connection with God, but that both parties tried to do some good, and they were going to do both good and bad. So there was no reason. That's not where our hope was. It wasn't in government. So we didn't participate in such a thing. Now, since then, after 2016, I have gotten way more political and involved, and I do vote. And I've encouraged my children to do the same. So I'm at work. I had some feelings and had said that I thought someone, or multiple people really, at my job were racist. And that's what I said, racist. But no actual proof. It was just very subtle. It wasn't even subtle things. It was my projection of them based on very superficial things. So I saw something that I believe confirmed that the person I was talking about was indeed racist. I saw what political party they supported. When I saw that, I became enraged. I was really angry. And I remember texting a few friends of mine. I was like, "Yep, I'm right. Racist." And I even said how I knew. But then I shared it with a coworker. That was my first mistake. And the coworker said, had asked me before, is there anything other than now this supposed confirmation that this person is racist? Do you get a racist vibe? Have they said anything to you, done anything? And I said no. In my mind, post 2016 election, if you vote Republican or support that party and you are a non-minority, then you are racist. Prior to 2016, I would not have believed that. Since then, absolutely believe it. That I remember this person, who is a minority, said, I wouldn't want to be judged on my political affiliation. And I said, well, I am judging. And like I said, I didn't say this, but it was kind of a lighthearted conversation. We weren't being very serious, but in that particular case, I was actually serious about it. But what that person said to me really made me think when they said, I wouldn't want to be judged on that. And I wouldn't want to lose a friendship with you based on how I voted. And that really got to me. And as I oftentimes do, I began to overthink this. And I often overthink these type of things when I'm not sure if what I'm thinking or what I'm saying or how I'm feeling is because of the indoctrination. Because I work really, really hard to try to reprogram my thinking. But it creeps up. I mean, I was in there for years as a child, up until adulthood. So this isn't easy for me. So when this came up, I thought, am I holding on to a belief system that I no longer believe in? So I did what I usually do. I called one of my kids. My oldest is the one that I talked to. And she and I have had this conversation before, and I kind of already knew how she felt. And we talked about it. She was like, the thing about it is, because as I was explaining, I was like, but do you want to judge somebody based on how they vote or the political party that they're supporting? Because I don't agree with everything that the people that I voted in do. I don't believe in everything that they believe in. And then she said, but the policies that they're putting in place doesn't keep other people from living their truth. And that's why this is hard for me. Because to me, that is a direct attack on how people should be able to live their life. Those policies that they put in place, it affects other people's lives, and it shouldn't. If you don't, and I've said on my podcast before, when I did a podcast episode about abortion, if you don't want to have an abortion, then don't. But don't tell me I can't. So then it goes down to, isn't that what I'm doing? You don't think the way I think? Boom. You and I can no longer be friends. Because you're not my friend if you don't believe what I believe. And I wonder, how far deep do I need to go with this? Because it does bother me. Now, I didn't ask either one of these people what they believe in. I just said, I saw this one thing that confirmed that you support this party, the Republican Party, and therefore you're racist and no longer worthy of being my friend. I didn't say it like that, but that's what my mind was thinking. So let me tell you a little story. When the girls were growing up in their preteen, teenage years, there were girls, typical little girl. I used to call it little girl drama. And we were in Publix, and I remember we were in Publix because I rarely go to Publix. And one of the girls was telling me this issue that they were having with a friend. And I don't remember who the friend was or what the issue was. There were so many since then. And at the time I was listening, and it's one of the things that I'm very fortunate to say that my girls do discuss these type of things with me down to this day. But we're in Publix. She's telling me about this friend, and I don't know what she did, but she was questioning whether or not they should still be friends. Now, the reason this advice I gave her was advice someone had just given me. And so I said, after she finished what she was saying, I said, you have to ask yourself, is what this person did enough to end your friendship with them? As your mother, I know that I have disappointed you, that there have been times that I didn't live up to your expectations, and I'm the person that loves you the most on this earth. So if I am capable, someone who loves you that much, if I am capable of disappointing you and not living up to your expectation, how much more so will your friends too disappoint you and not live up to your expectation? So you have to ask yourself, how important is this friendship? How bad was this thing that they did? Is it enough to lose a friend? Now, I might not remember the person, I may not remember what happened, but I do know that they got over that. My daughter and her, whatever friend this was. And I sometimes think about that. And when this coworker's faith and what was said to me, I thought, now, I ain't that close to this person, but it did make me think, is this a friendship worth saving? Simply because this person has disappointed me or not met an expectation that I have set for my friends. And then I think even deeper and I say, isn't that why you wouldn't go back to the cult? It's because they tell you how to believe, how to think, how to act, how to feel. Aren't you doing the same thing? It's because, like I said, I never asked what they believed in. This was based purely on the political party that they support. They could support this party and say, look, I don't agree with abortion. And I'm just going to use abortion because I've done a podcast on it. That's the only reason why I'm using this. Like I said, we didn't have a conversation, just me projecting. I don't know that they agree with the politician's abortion stand. We never had that conversation. I don't know that every Republican don't agree with the LGBTQ having rights and that being a human issue. I don't know how these people feel on those issues that are strong issues, more issues for me. All I know is you support a party who don't. So I ask myself, am I being reasonable? Is this something that's coming from my indoctrination that I'm still to this day trying to reprogram and get out of? Or am I justified in believing that this is such a strong moral issue for me that I need allies in my circle? I take this long pause to say I actually don't know. Because I really don't. I don't have all the answers. And sometimes, albeit very rarely, I don't know if I'm right on this one. And I don't actually know how I feel. So, can I be friends with a Republican? I don't have an answer to that. There's a part of me that says, heck no. And there's a part of me that says, how are you going to tell someone else that they have to think the way you think when you left an entire cult and refuse to go back because they want you to think how they tell you to think? So this is one of those rare occasions where I'm not really sure, but I'm still a work in progress, and I'll keep you posted once I have an answer, and you can always chime in. But regardless, like the Mary J. Blige says in the theme song for My Life, Just Fine. I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night, had a time of my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. Ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I went and changed my life. My life's just fine. So meet me on the other side of 45's podcast, the website, Instagram. New episodes will be released every Monday. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember to rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so others can find it. It helps me grow my podcast. Your feedback and support are greatly appreciated. As a matter of fact, I will strongly encourage you to reach out on Instagram or email me at host@theothersideof45.com and let me know, can I be friends with a Republican? I'm interested in knowing what you have to say. Till next time.